Hi, good morning. I am Michael Chevy Castronova. I'm the business editor here at the Gazette. Welcome to this not quite yet sunny morning, but we're optimistic. This morning we're live. This is our final quarter of the year for the Gazette Business Breakfast Panel. You know, back in April, we looked at the challenges for businesses over the previous couple of years. Pandemic, inflation, all those things you know about, and what our panelists then saw coming for this year, 2022. In June, that panel focused more on the issues facing downtown Cedar Rapids, including inflation again, what opportunities could be on the horizon. So this morning, very near the final quarter of 2022, we're going to talk about small business with people who represent some successful businesses hereabout and help those businesses and lessons they've learned and challenges and opportunities for which we all can be prepared going forward. Before I introduce this morning's panel, we have with us this morning from our sponsor, Bergen KDV, Lee Eilers. Lee, how are you this morning?
Doing well, Michael. Thank you.
You have some words you want to impart to us?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. And as Michael said, I'm Lee Eilers. I'm a teammate here at Bergen KDV, and I serve on the business advisory team. And on behalf of the entire team here at Bergen KDV, we are very proud to sponsor this morning's business breakfast. As many of you know, Bergen KDV has a strong heritage in serving distinct clientele in the tax and auto world throughout the Midwest, with offices in Cedar Rapids, Coralville, Des Moines, Minneapolis, St. Cloud, Omaha, and Kansas City. And we go deeper in serving our clients: human capital management, ERP, wealth management, forensic and data services, along with our business advisory team. And these capabilities all combine to provide a holistic approach to supporting the needs of businesses that are on the move. And we welcome any firm that is in search of a true partner that defines excellence through people and the depth of relationships. So again, on behalf of the Bergen KDV team, welcome to this morning's business breakfast. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Lee. I also want to note our community partner this morning, as always, Nuboco. Good to have them helping us along. So now to our panel. For those of you watching live, you can submit questions or comments by way of the Q&A button there at the bottom of your screen. Those will go to our room host this morning, who will send them along. You can do that during our discussion. Please don't wait until the last 15 minutes, which I know is kind of standard human behavior. But if you wait till the last 15 minutes, I cannot promise we will get to them. So now, our panelists. I'd like to go around my screen here and tell me your title, where you work, and just a brief executive summary of what you do there, even if we already know. So, Brittany, we're going to start. So, Sydney, who are you? Tell us about yourself for a bit, please.
Yes, so I'm Sydney Rickoff. I'm the CEO of Almost Famous Popcorn Company, and I'm based out of Cedar Rapids here. My brother and I started the businesses that ultimately became Almost Famous Popcorn Company 10 years ago in the Nubo City market, and today we're proud to be a fully family-owned popping business in the corridor.
Kimberly, you're over here to me.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Stevenson. I'm the Targeted Small Business Development Manager with the Iowa Economic Development Authority. So I work with microloans through the state, and we will touch on that a little bit later. So thanks for having us.
Thanks for being with us, Paul.
Hi, good morning. I'm Paul Andreessen. I'm the owner of Saucy Focaccia, and we recently branched out to the breakfast bar. We opened 9.5 years ago and developed into 3 storefronts.
Okay, all right. So I should note, my father spent most of his professional life in retail. So I understand optimism runs deep in small business and in retail, and it's always going to be a sunny day tomorrow. But I'm going to ask this question, and this is for all 3 of you, please. We've gone through a pandemic. We're still seeing its aftermath, right, on customer habits, recurring viruses. We had a derecho, which was not fun. We've got supply chain zaniness. It's still affecting practically everyone and everything. We have inflation on many, many items. We've had a labor shortage, which we've been talking about. I've been here for 10 years, for a while. What keeps you up at night? Or to put it the other way, what are you optimistic about what comes next? And you get to pick, I guess, whether you want to go or both. Sydney, you're smiling. What are you thinking about these days?
Well, people that know me know that, I like to be optimistic, and I'd say that with these current challenges right now, the thing that actually keeps me up at night is whether or not, as a company, we're being bold enough, and whether or not we are kind of letting ourselves get caught up in these short-term obstacles and not letting ourselves grow and look forward to a more optimistic future. So when I kind of sat down to think about this, there's a lot of things on my mind. Labor shortage has begun to hit us hard. We're obviously feeling a lot of the effects with supply chain, waiting on things for months, if not almost years at a time at this point. But overall, what really kind of keeps me up at night is whether or not we have that long-term outlook, whether or over this short-term kind of letting ourselves get caught up in some of these things that we're feeling today, but are hopefully going to go away in the future.
For those of us not in the popcorn industry, Sydney, what are some of the things that you have to wait for a long time? Are we talking about like packaging or?
Yep. So we definitely feel the effects in terms of packaging and raw materials, but where we're really feeling some of those even longer term wait times is with equipment. For example, you will probably at minimum right now, if you're looking to order new types of popcorn equipment, be looking at almost a year out. So that's caused us to be a little bit more strategic in how we go about that. We closed on another acquisition here probably a month ago, where we were able to get some existing equipment, and we're just having to look in new places, because honestly, you can go place an order for whatever amount of money for equipment today, and you're not going to see that new equipment for close to a year.
Paul, what's keeping you happy at night or awake at night or whatever is happening?
Oh boy, all these things are keeping me up at night. Yes, it's very challenging. The labor shortage, to kind of combat that, it forces you to maybe pay more of a salary to people to get them on board. And then that coupled with everything else that's going on, inflation, not just from the business standpoint, but your customers are feeling that too. So you become a luxury, not that stop that I make every week, that stop I make every 3 weeks, maybe now. So, you see a dip in customers, but yet you have to pay more to keep people on or bring people on. And then the supply chain, I mean, that's a big challenge. From our standpoint, it's little things that you wouldn't think about, chicken tenders, onion rings, turkeys, at times they just don't have them. And then you have to scramble how you still can provide that to the customer at the same quality. So that's a daily struggle, that I'm hopeful that, we're going to get by that soon. I guess some of the things I'm hopeful of, that will turn, and people will start coming back weekly, and when them things get in the supply line, that'll drive down prices, because additionally, not only is it hard to get that stuff, but you're paying in some cases considerably more money for it. So all of them things are a challenge when you're a small business, because behind the scenes, what people don't see, is that you're struggling with all that, getting the product you need, getting the people you need, and then trying to manage all that at a price that you're willing to pay as a customer.
Well, I was just reading, not to get too far afield on this, but avian flu, bird flu is still affecting turkey. And so there'll be less turkey. So it'll be more costly come around Thanksgiving. That usually right brings up the price of other things. Therefore, people will be buying more chicken, and that'll bring up the price of chicken, and people will be buying more beef. And you have to keep all those things in mind, don't you, Paul?
Yeah, definitely. Something I don't think everybody knows, and I didn't know this until it started affecting us. The Walmarts and the Targets of the world, they kind of get first crack at that stuff. So the companies that are our food providers, they're kind of behind Walmart and the big box stores as far as getting a lot of them products. So that's challenging for them, and then and makes it challenging for us to get the things we need from them.
We're in the same boat, Paul. In terms of the typical cheese we use in our plain cheddar popcorn, we haven't been able to get for really, I think, a year at this point, and all of that is going to one major customer of our supplier who they have a contract with that they can have as much as they want. And so all the little guys are trying to figure out kind of where else they can find that and something comparable, something at a similar price, so we don't have to hike the price up on our customers while changing the product at the same time. So we're definitely feeling that too.
I did not know there was a cheddar crisis. Wow.
Yeah.
Kimberly, you talk to lots of people who are starting businesses, run businesses. What are you hearing?
I think for me, I think my concern or at night is, whether, especially those startup businesses, whether they have enough to sustain during these challenging times. And then even for those existing businesses, do they have the resources that they need to continue to grow or thrive in whatever market they're in? I think a big thing that some of my small business owners are learning and may not necessarily be prepared for, and I know Sydney and both Paul had touched on this, is being able to pivot in those times of uncertainty. So if you're not able to get the things you need, how do you make that change to still, put a quality product out there, or even change up what you're putting out for your customers? So I think definitely being able to pivot or change a little bit, strategize and plan ahead for those changes or for those unexpected things that may affect your business, and then how you go forward from that.
And on that note, I want to remind people watching, if you have questions, thoughts, things you want to make sure our panel talks about, please submit those in the Q&A so we can make sure we can get to those. Sydney, the first time you and I chatted was, I think, in the spring, and you were about to go to, or you already had gotten to, the 10,000 Small Businesses Summit in Washington, D.C., where you got to meet lots of famous people and hear great thoughts from some business folks. And you told me then that you were going to have you had some takeaways, and you were going to bring them back here to Iowa, and you were going to try to implement those. And so I guess what I want to know from you is, how many of those did you try and how'd those work out? And I don't mean that to sound like I don't expect that they did, but how'd that go?
No, thank you, Michael. No, I think, and honestly, I took so many notes, as Michael knows. I called him on the phone, and I have a whole book here of things that I took away from this conference, and I'm still referencing that daily, and kind of challenging myself to think about how I can incorporate those things. So for example, I think some of the big takeaways we discussed, or this idea of overall branding. How does somebody feel from the moment they walk in the door of your retail location to use the bathroom, to do all these things? What does it make them feel like? And that's an ongoing effort. Still working on getting to the bathrooms, by the way, but the rest of things, we are still dealing with some supply chain issues in terms of building materials and things as well. But it's definitely kind of on the forefront of my mind of how can we make people feel that this is almost famous from, again, the front to the back of the store and every interaction in between, even if they never set foot in our store. How does that feel like it's almost famous? And so that was a comment from Allie Webb, the founder of Dry Bar, one of my favorite places to visit whenever I'm near one. And so that one is definitely something that I think throughout my business career, I'm going to continue to think about and challenge myself to be better on every day. Another one I was thinking about this morning that I've been trying to implement is Marcus Samuelson. He's a chef. I think he was on Chopped. He actually had a really cool panel with the fashion designer Rebecca Minkoff. And one of the things that he said was that he's been lucky enough to be yelled at in every language of the world, and kind of discussed, how we take feedback and think about that. And so that's something that I've challenged myself since coming back to, of how can we view feedback, and especially negative feedback, in a way that helps us to grow. And in times like these, where things are so fragile, how can we take that and become stronger from it? And so there were so many great takeaways, not only from some of the speakers that were brought in, but just from meeting with other small business owners from around the country. And for future gatherings, I highly recommend for anyone that's able to go. It was a really impactful experience, and something that, given these conditions, was incredibly beneficial for me as a small business owner.
And were there really 10,000 small businesses? Did you count?
There were a lot. I've never seen so many people in one space at a given time. It was pretty darn cool.
So, not too unrelated from that, Paul, I wanted to ask you. So at Saucy Focaccia, that started out as a food truck, only 9 years ago, right? It wasn't very long ago, as these things go. And you moved to Nubo City Market, also, just like Almost Famous. And then you opened some storefronts, and you've got a breakfast bar in Hiawatha. I guess what I'm asking you about is how do you think about those when you're going to go from one thing to another thing, or you're going to add something? I think that's called scaling, right? You're scaling up.
Yeah.
How do you work that through in your head? Kimberly was talking about one of the concerns she has for people she talks to is that, how do they know when to advance or try something new? How do you?
Yeah. So in our case, at least early on, it was very easy. When we were the food truck, we came and were recruited by Nubo. That made sense to get inside, to be able to be there year round. So that was an easy move. And then at Nubo, it's great for a startup business. You don't have to invest a lot of money. But there's only so much growth there, right? They're only open limited amount of times. And, kind of once you hit a certain stage of your customer base, it just makes sense to venture out. And then we found a great location at Fountains. From there, our next decision was based on what our customers were telling us. We had people visiting us from Iowa City or across town. And you got them questions is when you're going to open something else, when you're going to have something on the other side of town. A little unlucky in that case. We made the commitment, and then months after that, the pandemic hit, and we were forced to open in the middle of the pandemic, just because of the commitments we had made and the lease and them kind of things. And then our last opportunity, we just looked at the market, and we were like, are we ready to leave Cedar Rapids? Is there another opportunity in Cedar Rapids? And then we kind of thought, hey, there's not a lot of great breakfast places. Let's explore that. And we became really intrigued with that and with the idea, and kind of taking our philosophy from Saucy into that business mold. So in our case, we've made them decisions either because that's just what made sense, from the food truck to Nubo, from Nubo to a storefront. And then, what opportunities are out there, even if it's not exactly what we're doing now. So them are kind of the steps that we've taken to make them decisions. I hope that answers your question.
Did you ever have an evening, dark night of the soul, where after you made one of these commitments and you signed a lease and you thought, wait, what have I done? Have I lost my mind? No.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that for sure happens when you make any big decision like that, because honestly, as you get bigger and bigger, these decisions are a big risk. It involves a lot of money. And if you haven't made the right decisions, then it can be costly, like not only to that location, but maybe to the whole business. So definitely when we opened the Westdale location, and then, as we were still remodeling and we had an open date that we were committed to and the pandemic hit, I definitely had plenty of them nights of, oh boy, this was bad timing, but it worked out. And, that's the other side of it. You just got to keep your head down and keep moving forward.
Yeah, that is the moral of the story, right? I mean, you're still in business, still doing these.
Yeah.
So Kimberly, this might be the best time then for those listening. Tell us about the Targeted Small Business Development Program. Who should apply? What does that do exactly? If you give us that explanation for those watching.
Sure. So the Targeted Small Business Program is made up of two different programs. One is a certification program, and the other one is the microloan program. So with the certification, businesses get certified through the state of Iowa. Criteria for both the loan and the certification are going to be businesses have to be operated in the state of Iowa. You have to be operating for a profit. Your gross income over an average of 3 years has to be less than $4 million. And then you need to be 51% or more owned by one of our targeted group persons. So our targeted group persons are going to be women, minorities, disabled individuals, and service disabled veterans. And that is for both the certification and the loan. So along with being certified, our small businesses get listed into a directory of other small businesses. That directory is accessed by both public and private buyers. They do have the benefit of attending TSB networking events. There are various state procurement opportunities, certain things like 48-hour advance notices of bids through the state, and then access to non-competitive bids. So those are a couple of the benefits of being certified through the state of Iowa. On that other side, which is the microloan, for the microloan, you do not have to be certified. We would like you to be certified, but that is not a requirement of the loan. To be certified, let me take a step back. We do like our businesses to be operating, and that's because you go into that directory where people can access, the service or goods that you provide. So we do want you to be in business.
So you already have to have started.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the other side is going to be, we offer a micro loan of up to $50,000 for startup or existing businesses. And that has a low interest rate of 3%. And then we have a maximum term of 60 months. So again, it is available, for startup and existing businesses. We like for our startups to be at a point where they are ready for the funding. They've worked and reworked their business plan, and now they're deciding that it's time to move forward. On the existing business side, you may need money to train staff, to hire additional staff. You may need inventory, or equipment, different things of those natures. We want you to be able to come in and get funds from our program. So some of our things like our microloan, you can't do a purchase of real estate. So I'll give you an example, but we do partner with other agencies and other resources providers where their program may not have some of the stipulations like we do. So if you come to me, of course, I want you to be able to utilize my program and my fund. I always want you to be certified, and I always want you to be able to access the funds that you need for your business. But if for some reason I am unable to help you, I always want to be able to connect you to someone who can. So even if I have to say no, we do want to make sure that you are aware of other resources that are available to you. And I think piggybacking kind of off what we were talking earlier about what keeps us up at night is making sure that our businesses are aware of those resources. So we appreciate platforms like this. That way we can get the word out, because you would be surprised the number of business owners who are not aware of things like the Targeted Small Business Loan Program or certification, or other resources through other agencies throughout the state of Iowa. So awareness is important. And again, just kind of being a connector of all things, that way we can make sure our small businesses, again, are able to sustain and getting the things that they need.
So Kimberly, where can people go find out about this? There's a website?
Yeah. So if you go, to the Iowa Economic Development Authority, and it's IEDA.com, and you go to the small business section and you go to the Targeted Small Business Program, it'll give you additional information on the certification as well as the loan. So you will see my name and contact information listed there. So if anybody has, any questions or need any additional information on the certification or the microloan, again, please feel free to contact us. And again, like I said, go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
No. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. And again, like I said, we're a connector. So if you come to me and you have these different needs and maybe you need some direction, we're able to provide that as well. So
you mentioned networking as one of the resources. Is that where they like this, where they can talk to other small businesses who have gone through the program, or who's in that?
Yep. So what we do is we do things like this, or we may even set up TSB exclusive networking events outside of those in-person events, where maybe we can pick a targeted small business location to hold the events, where we invite various businesses and organizations in so they can come in and network and get to know each other, even offer advice to other business owners about the different cycles, the things that they are seeing, the things that they are, needing. I think that's a great thing for being certified, is because you're in a directory with other businesses, but you're able to connect with those other targeted small businesses. So it could be, how can I utilize your service or product? How can you utilize my service or product? We've gone through different cycles. How were you able to bounce back? What measures did you take to make sure that you stayed afloat during those challenging times? Different things like that. So we like to do those networking events just so people are aware of the other small businesses that are out there. And that way, like I said, they can use each other. That's another source of resources. That way they can use those other small businesses as resources.
Very good. So sticking with that of networking and resources, we do have a question. Sydney, Paul, a person wrote in saying that they recently bought a small business here in the corridor. They point out they are the fifth owners of this business. It's a walk-in, customer-facing retail operation. And the question is, how would you prioritize branding, decor, those sorts of things? It's the same business. It's been there forever, but it's new owners. Occasionally you see those signs say under new management. Okay, good. So I guess to you two, having been in the trenches in a nice way, how important is that?
Well, I think if it's been through 5 owners, I think it's very important. I would view that as something hasn't worked in the past. So if you're going to step into that, if you think it has an opportunity or it's a great product that you're selling and the business is still not making it through 5 owners, then I think branding, changing the customer perspective is a big thing. So is it enough to say under new management, like you said? Maybe not at this point, because if I'm a customer, I know it's been under new management 4, 5, 6 times. What else can you bring to the table that is going to bring me in and let me try your product? And I'm kind of being vague on the product since you didn't specifically say what it was.
Chocolate. It's a chocolate shop.
Okay. I would say in that case, okay, I'm a new business owner. I love chocolate. I like this chocolate. I can go in and make this work. That's not necessarily the case. Just because you can make a great burger doesn't mean you can open a hamburger store. There's a lot more to it. The ability to scale it, the ability to make the food look attractive. There's lots of things to take in consideration when you're making that decision to open a business. The short time we were at Nubo, I was front row for some businesses that thought, hey, I can do this well, but they had no clue on how to, do it quickly or efficiently or at a price that made sense. So all them things are things I think they should consider. Can I tweak the product? Is the product perfect already? Can I produce it quickly enough at a price point that makes sense to the customer? And then if all that's in place, how do I bring customers in? And I think that's when branding and all of that comes into play.
And for those watching, in case you don't know, Nubo City Market here is designed as an incubator for businesses. You come in, you build up, you see how it goes, and then maybe you move on to elsewhere. So that and that's why Saucy Focaccia and Almost Famous also cycled through there. They worked out the kinks, and there they are. So Sydney, what do you think about how important? How do you prioritize? Sorry, that's really the question. Branding, decor. Should they throw out all the furniture and change it to another color?
I'm excited about this question. I peeked at who it was. I don't have to say who it was, but I am excited because I think you guys have a really great product. I've been a fan for years. And I think that you actually have a pretty good thing going there. I think that chocolate can be a lot like popcorn, where there's a lot of options out there and you have to prioritize branding and the way that customers feel about your brand in order to be able to charge those elevated prices. When somebody can go and walk into the store and buy a $2 bag of popcorn or a $1 bar of chocolate versus our $10 bag of popcorn or your $5 to $7 bar of chocolate, there has to be some branding there. And obviously, I think in both these instances, the quality of the products being utilized and the methods to produce it, there's a huge differentiation there from what you're going to walk in and get somewhere else. But you have to be able to convey that to customers and also utilize branding to a point where your customers become your advocates, because you can use all this marketing and try to convince people yourself of, hey, we're worth it. Come on in, come see us. But it just multiplies it by tenfold when you can have customers do that for you. And that's something that we've really prioritized throughout the years, both intentionally and non-intentionally. We've tried really hard to create a brand just kind of through ourselves of being fun people to work with and always doing the right thing. And so that's helped us. And we're still seeing kind of some of those early investments that we put in pay off today. And then I'd say just overall, when thinking about branding, a couple things that I've come to realize is that you have to be able to find kind of designs, colors, different things that you can own in your brand, and that when people kind of see those things, they think of you. So for example, this blue color I have behind me right now is something that we adopted in a rebrand probably 5 or 6 years ago, and is something that we utilize throughout kind of all the things that we do, because it's a little bit different and it's different from other popcorn shops that you see. And one thing that I think about with this particular company is there's like some use of ribbons in some of the product. And that's something that I kind of always tie with your brand and think is a really fun way to do that. And I would keep that. And then also finding brand partners who get you and get the brand that you want to build, and understanding that not every partner who comes along to help you with that is going to be the right fit. While they may have great branding, it's beautiful, it might not be you, and it has to speak to you and has to speak to this brand that you're trying to build. So don't be afraid to kind of cycle through as many options as you need to get to find those people that understand and can help you build this brand with you the way that you see it.
So talking a little bit more about branding, and Almost Famous popcorn, Saucy Focaccia, those are proper nouns to your credit that are pretty much immediately recognizable hereabouts. I heard about both of your labels. before I'd even gone to one of them. I heard about Almost Famous Popcorn, which I assume is from the movie. I don't know. I'm going to ask you about that later. And Saucy Focaccia, I'd heard of these places from coworkers who said, no, these are wonderful. We go there. I read recently that something like 70% of brand managers, whatever that's worth, say building an audience is more important than direct sales, which okay, but I get the idea. How important is that brand awareness right now? And really, how important is it to have a social media component? How active are you two on social media? And maybe Kimberly, you tell us what you hear from people. Paul, are you on Twitter? What are you doing?
Yeah, we're very active. That is something that my wife handles for the most part for me. She's a little more savvy when it comes to that. But we definitely use that. We post, every day at least, if not multiple times a day. We've utilized contests through our Facebook page, which has drove a lot of attention toward us. We've done some Twitter stuff. So we stay pretty active in that, especially when you're not utilizing other avenues like radio or TV. Although we are looking at some radio programs right now. It's very important to keep your name out there, keep people thinking about you. It's pretty easy to, oh yeah, Saucy Focaccia, I forgot about them. But if they're part of your social media network and you're constantly getting that message out there, then it's kind of hard to forget about you.
I would say the same thing. I think we're in the day and age of social media. So I think that is a great platform for a lot of our businesses, whether Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those different things. I think a lot of, for instance, we have food trucks. So for all of our food truck businesses who want to be certified, and we utilize them, they come to our building here. And a lot of times you'll want to run and you want to quickly do the menu. Well, it automatically will take you to like a Facebook, or Instagram. So you see the following, or you can see where your truck is that day. So you're able to, follow where they're going and just be able to support that business that way as well. I think social media has been one of those things. And I guess it depends on who your target market is as well. That's going to be an important piece. But I saw the other day, it was really cute. There was a car driving past me and it said, if you take a selfie with this vehicle and post it, we'll send you prizes. I'm like, well, how catchy is that? Everybody, well, the younger generation, at least I know, my daughter is selfied out every day. So I'm like, how cute is that? You take a selfie with the car, you post it, you get prizes. Or you could even be at various events and hashtag this or, tag this on Instagram. And so I definitely think that is a good move, for marketing for our businesses.
Thank you for mentioning that, Kimberly. I think you have a really good point there in terms of it's great to use social media just in general, but it's especially powerful when you find kind of new, fun, unique ways to interact with audiences. Because I think, as a consumer myself of social media, there's so much available out there and you see a lot of the same thing over and over. And so it's kind of those fun, quirky, different, sometimes bold things that really catch your attention. And that's something that I continuously try to challenge myself and my team to think about. And with our social media, that's one place where, I talked about in that last question, finding brand partners that understand where you're trying to go and the brand you're trying to build. We've had to cycle through a couple partners to find, who I think is the right fit right now, to be able to kind of to feel that and navigate all these changes that happen with social media on a daily basis alongside with us. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities with social media, but you need to think about it from a standpoint of how you can set yourself apart and like, kind of Paul was saying, kind of invite them in with you. Something I'm experimenting with right now is kind of building a personal brand alongside the business. I have a new name I've kind of put together called the Popcorneur. So popcorn plus entrepreneur. And I'm trying to utilize that to give people even a more inside look into the business and kind of seeing my journey as a young female CEO navigating the world of a food business. And so I think there's some fun ways that you can play around with things like that as well. And just being open and being authentic is what's really important with social media today.
So let me ask you about this then. So talking about all these things and looking forward. So a couple of years ago, right, we had a pandemic, and that devastated foot traffic for everyone, and plus a lot of businesses were just closed. And we had a derecho that was, depends on where you live, but it was pretty horrible for some. I was out of electricity for more than 2 weeks, so I get how that works for a lot of people. And we've had an issue with staffing forever. So I guess what I want to ask is, you're both, Paul, Sydney, your businesses are still around. So you did some things right, or you dodged some bullets, or you thought of something clever. Is there anything you can think of that over the past couple years, which have been more volatile than usual in terms of supply chain and everything else we've talked about, is there anything that you came up with, or someone in your business came up with, that you implemented that has stuck around, like you never would have thought of that before, but you're still doing it? For example, these business panels we're doing right here, we used to do them in person. We did them forever at Geometric and their space in Newbo. And I really like that, but we're doing it this way. And we've been doing this way for a couple of years now. I don't know if that'll stick around, but what are some things that you came across that you might not have thought of otherwise, but you're still doing them, that people watching might say, you know, that's not a bad idea?
I can go first. Two big things kind of stick out for me of what were ideas that came out of the pandemic for us. The first one being kind of when the pandemic hit, you know, as a retail location, it wasn't really clear if we were going to be able to stay open, you know, from day to day, but we knew from the beginning we were committed to keeping all of our employees working. And, you know, we're happy to say we didn't have to let anyone go based on the pandemic. So one thing we did early on was said, okay, how can we find new opportunities to sell our product where people are still going to be in the midst of, you know, the world seemingly shutting down. And one of that was we called up local Hy-Vees because we knew the grocery stores, that's where people were going to be. And we're able to get 10 of our more unique flavors into most of the local Hy-Vees. And we're so lucky to have those community partners and that support. And that's something that we really thought would just last kind of through the pandemic. We'd be able to offer these fun kind of different flavors that you don't always see it in the popcorn aisle. And, you know, that would be a great way for people to still connect to our product while they're going to the store and taking it home. But we didn't see that as really like a long-term project. But as of today, that's still going. It's expanded. We're seeing it actually expand across the country to a variety of different stores. And we're able to kind of pivot with that and see, hey, not everybody is maybe looking for just your standard caramel, cheddar, or butter popcorn flavors within the grocery store, but they may actually want access to these more fun flavors like Poppy Chow and Monster Cookie and things that are just different that you're not going to see in every aisle. So that was a really great takeaway for us, and something, again, we were just really lucky to have great community support behind that and be able to keep our employees working. And then the second thing that really came out of kind of all these closures and just the changing of the world landscape was we were able to take our fundraising programs, which traditionally used to be done kind of where we'd set up a table, go into an office building and sell, and, you know, for maybe a couple hours, and then gives those proceeds to whatever organization they were fundraising for. We've actually been able to take that now online, and we found some great tools. If people haven't come across the tool Jotform, it's a really great way to kind of take Google Forms and do even more with it. So I'd recommend checking that out. But we've been able to utilize that and do a wide variety of fundraisers that actually have a much larger reach than when we were just set up within a building for a couple of hours. And that's been a huge, very successful thing for us, and a great way to continue to connect with the community and kind of thank them for their support throughout the last couple of years. So those are things that I don't think, without kind of the pressure of world events we would have necessarily pursued. But we're very thankful today that we were able to do that, given everything that has gone down.
Paul, what do you think? I know there were some times there where some of your Saucy Focaccia stores, their hours were kind of wacky, not through your fault, but
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, that's actually kind of post-pandemic, where that was more of some labor issues that we were struggling with, which I know we touched on base earlier, is having enough people to staff your store. During the pandemic specifically, it really turned into, food to go. So how are you going to communicate that to people that you can come here and get your food still? And, that really opened up some avenues for us as far as how we communicate that from outside the store. So we've moved to using a lot of window art and signage to just remind customers that we're here and we're open, and this is kind of what we're offering and what you can get. Because at that time, for a long time, you either couldn't see people at all, or they had to be separated by a certain distance, and all that became very challenging. Maybe some stuff that Almost Famous didn't have to deal with, because there always are food on the go, right? You come in, you buy the popcorn, you leave. So from our standpoint, it was, how do we make it safe for the customer? And I think, things we took out of it is some of that, being a little more conscious of the customer and their health, and how to execute a lot of stuff to go, and how do we package it, and how do we keep it hot until the customer gets there. And, we had all that stuff in place, but when you pivot to where that's just everything you're doing, it just changes the scale so much that you can't help but to pick up some more helpful cues in how you go about doing that. So I think them are the big things we took out of it. Drawing the customer in from outside our store, and then how we deal with food to go.
I was going to mention Oasis in Iowa City, which was a walk-in restaurant, and the owners came up with the idea of packaging their hummus, which they had already been doing, but then they did a deal with Costco, and you could buy some of their products just in stores while the restaurant itself wasn't functioning the way it had been. And I'm pretty sure that's still true, that they're still doing that.
They are. I've even seen their products in Hy-Vee, which is cool to see. And just to add on what you guys are saying, businesses did, when faced with those challenges, again, the pivot, as Sydney and Paul had said. So for a lot of my small businesses, it was now they turn to going for take and bake, for instance, like Paul said, or, those maybe the mom and pop stores that didn't have an online presence, maybe now they're moving online because of, the pandemic. Or you have restaurants who maybe didn't offer delivery. Well, now that's, in play now, to accommodate for those changes. And then I've seen a lot of partnerships amongst businesses. For example, if you shop here, we'll give you a certain discount at another store. So I think it created a lot of those partnerships as well. Like, you come over here, you spend X amount of dollars here, we can give you a discount to go to another business. That way, both businesses, are set up for the win. So I think, again, like I've said before, I think it's just setting yourself up to be ready for those changes. We always want to be proactive, but sometimes in those emergency states, you have to be reactive, and that has to, work for your business and your target market.
Kimberly, I've got a follow-up question for you, but I want to remind people watching, we're now in the final 10 minutes. Remember that thing I said about if you've had questions or thoughts, if you want us to get to them, now's your time. Carpe diem. If you've got something you want to convey, you should probably type that into the Q&A at the button at the bottom of your screen. So Kimberly, during this time that we're talking about, when a lot of businesses were closed and they had to rethink how they were doing it, and I do want to ask about staffing, Did you see any changes in the program in terms of like what sorts of new businesses were applying or were getting involved that you might not have seen, or any sort of shift in the landscape that way? And the answer could be no, I suppose.
No, well, a little bit of everything. So you would see a shift, I think, as far as startup businesses, it was a little bit of hesitation or a little bit of pause just because there was so much uncertainty with the business. Then on the other side, for those existing businesses who decided that they maybe need to restructure, replan, reorganize how they are going to market or get their product or service out. We had those who would come in and would apply for funds through the microloan. So if they had to re-strategize, they would come in. Startups slowed down just a touch, but then they took off. And the reason why is because you're in a pandemic, you're at home, a lot of people are laid off. What better time than now, even with these things that are going on, to start a business? So we were slow at first. And then, it picked back up once people realized, hey, I'm laid off. I've had this, plan in my pocket or in the works for the past 6 months to a year, 2 years, however long. What better time than now to be able to start that business? So, and the different businesses for the most part were, still your normal businesses, whether it's restaurants, catering, coffee houses, different things like that. But I think as we shifted later on throughout the year through the pandemic, then I started to see more businesses that were more home-based, because with the uncertainty, you don't want to have the overhead cost of a brick and mortar. So you see things that can be done from your household, like event planning, virtual assistants, medical transportation. A lot of, home-based businesses, or even businesses that would cater to, because now that we're through it, shall I say, not all the way done, but kind of still going through, and people are getting back to the workplace. Now it's what services are there for convenience? I've sat in my house, for so long, and now that I'm back out into the workforce, okay, what things are convenient? So things like meal prepping. You see a lot of food prepping companies that have come about. You see a lot of, I know I was one of them. I got a pet in the pandemic, with kids in the household, you're working from home just for mental sanity. Let's get a pet. Still trying to figure out to this day what made me do that. But we did. We got a dog. So now you see a lot of businesses that are centered towards pets, and the care and upkeep, of those pets. So I definitely think it had its moments. And then I think you have those businesses who saw the need stemming from the pandemic and were able to start based off
Sure. Well, and I'm sure one of the things that a lot of people have asked you about, Kimberly, and we do have a question here from someone watching, and we were going to get to this anyway. We've never had a business panel since I've been in this profession where we didn't talk about retention and recruitment. So the question is, as a small business owner who needs to expand, wants to expand, he's having a hard time, she's having a hard time, finding qualified candidates. What avenues do you recommend to find the right candidates? And that's been plaguing every for-profit, not-for-profit, retention, recruitment, large and small, everywhere, but certainly in Iowa. Paul, what are you doing? What are you doing to staff your businesses?
Yeah, so we use home base, and through that we can advertise on some of the recruiting sites. We also use Indeed. But, I don't know about everybody else, but right now it's just so tough. Like, you get 5 applications on one of them sites that you're paying for, and you set up 5 interviews and 4 of them don't show up. Them are the kind of things you're dealing with. So it's really when that one person shows up, asking the right questions, identifying if they fit the brand, and if there's somebody that can be a long-term employee. It's very, very tough right now. I mean, in the past, you could be, a lot more thoughtful and picky about who you are hiring. But right now, there's kind of this thought among employees that because of the job shortage, if I don't like it here immediately, or you ask me to do something I don't want to do, I'll just leave and go somewhere else. And everybody is so desperate for employees that they can do exactly that, right? They can leave here and go next door, and leave there and go here. Where in the past, them are kind of things that you would have identified when you looked at their application. Why have you been at 5 jobs in the last year? Are you going to fit? But right now, the tough thing is this is the only person that's applied or that has showed up for their interview. And we don't have enough people to staff our store. And, it's very difficult. You have to take chances that maybe you wouldn't have took in the past. And, you hope your customers understand that's going on, but unfortunately, that's not always the case. And you get the friendly customer reminder, why don't you just hire more people?
Yeah. Yeah, we get that
Great.
too. Why don't you hire more reporters? Well,
I didn't think about that. Maybe that's what I should do.
Brittany, Sydney, we've only got a couple of minutes left. What do you think? What are you experiencing?
I'm in the same boat as Paul. I've had people that I hire, they come to the interview, they train, and then they come for their first shift, they never show up. So we felt that. So we've been getting kind of creative. A couple of the ways that we've been finding people is, and this will work for some businesses, maybe not for others. We've reached out to our customer base. Some proud customers and things are looking for a little extra work. And we've been able to bring some people in that way. We've asked our employees, I caution this a little bit because it can sometimes backfire. You don't want, if you bring everybody's friends or neighbors or cousin in, sometimes it works really well. Sometimes you bring in kind of other factors that then kind of complicate things. But your employees do know your business. They know the job. They are probably the best advocates in terms of finding people that could be a good fit. And then finally, we're looking in kind of non-traditional pools that we maybe hadn't thought about before. For example, we used to really think that, everyone wanted to come in full-time or kind of part-time on like a longer term basis. An area we've had really good luck is with retirees who are maybe just looking to work a few hours, a couple days a week. And if you find enough of those, they kind of supplement each other and it works really well. So just kind of looking at it a little bit differently and taking off some of these kind of traditional thoughts that you've had about who you need to have working for you and finding kind of unique candidates that might be a different fit for what you're looking for.
Okay. All right. So we're at the very end here. Final question. This is our speed dating, quick answers. I'm going to go all the way around to everyone. Based on your experiences, if you could give only one valuable piece of advice, someone who wants to start a business or just started, only been in operation a short while, retail, not retail, what would that be? One piece of advice. Paul, what is it?
When you come into the business, have a business plan and procedures in place.
Okay.
Don't just think I can do this. Have a list of ways I'm going to do it.
Okay, Sydney, one thing.
Structure your days so that you can find a variety of small wins. As an entrepreneur and business owner, there's a lot of pressures coming at you and you're going to hear a lot of no and a lot of negativity. You can find little things, even just getting somebody to respond back to an email that you can kind of guarantee yourself is going to be a win. That's going to build you up to be able to face some of those bigger challenges.
Okay, Kimberly, you give advice. What's the one thing?
Yes,
Muted.
I would probably say be prepared for the unexpected. Be prepared for the unexpected.
Okay, be prepared. Have a list.
Yes.
Small wins. Okay.
Rework that business plan. Always keep that working.
Okay, and that pretty much takes us to the end of our time this morning. Right here on this site this morning, in just a few minutes, I believe, we'll also be posting our 4 recorded interviews that Gazette reporting staff conducted in our final 2022 segment in our Spotlight series. This group focused on growth for the future. You'll see Luke Bishop of BAE Systems, Matt Swift of Big Grove, Sarah Nelson at Community Crisis Service, and Drew Martell of Foundation 2. And with the Better Business Bureau of Cedar Rapids, we talked to Mark Meyer of InterConnects. I want to thank our panelists today. I want to thank Lee Eilers at Bergen KDV. Thank you to those of you tuned in. More to come. Iowa Ideas Conference. Haven't talked about that. Iowa Ideas Conference, October 13, 14. That's a big 2-day event. Check that out too. Happy trails. Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.